There is a bit of a quirk that has come to light with regards to the HDZero goggles and Crossfire. That quirk is that if you move your Crossfire transmitter on high power levels too close to the HDZero goggles, it will actually cause them to reboot. Now, this is a bit of a strange one, and what we're going to do today is take a closer look at exactly what the situation is, demonstrate the effect in real time, and we're also going to see how this affects other digital FPV systems such as DJI and Avatar HD. And I can tell you now, HDZero is not alone in the fact that it is being affected. Now, if you found this video useful, please do make sure you give it a like. Furthermore, please do make sure you are subscribed as well. And if you'd like to support the channel to allow us to keep making content like this in the future, please do consider checking out the link to my Patreon. It's only through the support of my patrons I'm able to buy all the equipment that you've seen here to be able to perform tests like this. Anyway, let's get on with it and let's talk about what the situation is first of all. Okay, so to just explain the basics of this, people have been commenting and posting over the last few weeks that they're finding either that their HDZero goggles are randomly rebooting or they're rebooting when they move their transmitter for Crossfire close to it. It also appears to be the case that this can happen if the Crossfire transmitter gets too close to the power cable for the goggles as well. Now, initially, we have only seen comments on this on HDZero, and it seems to be at higher power levels, specifically 1 watt, regardless of if dynamic power is on or off or not. Today, though, what we're going to do next is walk you through some tests, and in my findings, it isn't actually just 1 watt that will cause it. Anything above 250 milliwatts seems to have an effect as well, and it could even happen at 100 milliwatts. Once we've taken a look at this on the HDZeros, we'll then take a look at it on DJI and then Avatar HD to see what effect this has on those. Now, at the point of me recording this video, I didn't actually realise that Crossfire was also massively interfering with my microphone. I've now had to jump back and add this little bit into the video. In the edit, I've had to add some pretty heavy voice isolation to get rid of the noise, but there are periods where I turn it on and off so you can hear exactly what is going on. I'm not going to go back and re-record the whole thing as a result of it, but it does just show the effect that Crossfire also has on other systems. Okay, now just to demonstrate this quirk, now we have the HDZero goggles, we have them connected to the battery, which is here, and I want to try and show you this as I move across, and then we've got it connected on HDMI output. Now, just to be clear, this does not have an effect on this behavior. This will happen without the HDMI cable connected. This is simply so I can show you what happens on the goggle screen as well. Now, we have my Boxer and we currently have a Crossfire module in the back. I'm in Agent, and for the purpose of testing indoors in this video, it is set to 1 watt and it is set to dynamic power on. It doesn't matter if you have dynamic power on or off, it still does it. It is a bit more likely to do it if you have dynamic power off. However, the overall outcome isn't any different, even if it is turned on. Now, the very basics are, if Crossfire, which I've got here, gets too close to the goggles, it will cause them to reset. It will also do it, though, via the power cable too, and that's why I've got it stretched out, because the first thing I want to do is show you the behavior, and then I'll show you it with the battery power cable too, to show you where it sort of kicks in. So what I'm going to do is hold the HDZero goggles here. I'm just going to pick up my radio there, and what I'm going to do is begin to move the radio close to the goggles, and as you can see there, they've rebooted. Now, at that point, you can hear that the fans actually stopped working. They're kicking in again now, and the goggles will reboot. Now, sometimes when they do this, they will fully reboot into working order, and sometimes they will simply just reboot and sit on the HDZero screen, and they won't do anything until you completely reset them via the power switch on the side. Let me just take a look in here at the moment. This time they have rebooted to the main screen. So what I'm going to do is simply allow them to connect. There you go. You can see it has kicked back in. If I just do it again, now if I just hold the radio a bit higher away from the power cable, and I'm going to move it actually up towards the mic so you can hear it as well with regards to what the fans do. So what I'm going to do is come in. There we go. The goggles have rebooted. Now, just to demonstrate that this can happen on the power cable as well, I've moved the screen down to the bottom. The battery is here. So what I'm simply going to do is place that under there because you don't need to see it. But what I want to be able to show you is the full move around as we do this. So again, I'm just going to take the radio. I'm going to move it close to the power cable. And I'm just going to move on up. And there is a point, there you go, that the goggles have reset. And they're kicking back in as they've done when you bring it close to the goggles themselves. Now, just to demonstrate this on 25 milliwatts, we've got dynamic power turned off. We're going to do the same test again. And what I'm going to do is come in close, move it around. We're getting much closer this time. And actually, you can see I can literally touch the goggles with the Crossfire transmitter. No effect, no problem at all at 25 milliwatts. If we now move up to 250, we'll do the same tests again. Moving around. And again, on the goggles, no issues. Oh, at 250, we did manage to get a reset, but we did have to go very, very close on top of the goggles up there, right by the main control board. Now, with regards to doing this with Express ELRS, I don't actually have 868 or 900, but I do obviously have plenty of 2.4s, and as a bench demonstration, we will try it at 1 watt just to see what happens at 2.4, but I don't believe we're going to have any issues. Just moving it around the cable to see what happens. Nothing right up to there. Right in on the goggles with Express ELRS at 2.4. Nothing at all. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. Okay, now with regards to the effect it has on other systems, here we have DJI-03. It's currently connected through onto the phone so you guys can see the display, and there's an air unit in the background over there somewhere that you can see. I've currently got Crossfire reconnected and we're on 1 watt with dynamic power turned off. That is the worst case scenario. And what we'll do is we'll start with the battery. Try not to get tangled up in it. Nothing at all. No effect whatsoever. Literally moving the Crossfire antenna around the system. Let's put it into the face mask. Not sure you're ever going to do that in the real world, but there is just no effect on it whatsoever. And just to demo this on the V2 goggles with the O3 ear unit, it's exactly the same though on any of the other ear units. The mode itself doesn't affect it. If we come down, exactly the same setup. We're using Crossfire on 1 watt, no dynamic. All fine on the cable. Moving around the goggles, literally no effect at all, no matter where I put it, even around this USB cable going in, power cable there. Let's get it into the face mask. Nothing at all, absolutely fine. Next, moving over to Avatar HD. Now, I'm going to need to be a little bit careful here because this USB-C cable is so touchy with regards to video, it'll just cut in and out. So what I'm going to do in a minute is not touch the goggles. You can see we've got the video down there in the bottom corner. Same setup, battery over here. Crossfire on the radio, set at 1 watt, dynamic power off. So worst case scenario. We're going to start moving up the battery cable first of all. And notice that we've lost video and it's now come back. Let me go back in. Let's just see what happens again. Moving up the cable. We had a loss of video then. Was that as a result of Crossfire, or was that just that horrible connection? Let's come up and let's come close to the goggles, and boom, video is gone again, and they beep. The fans actually change as well. Now, when I was looking at this just now, I replicated this. I didn't see the display change, but we'll have a look at that visually in a second. That is definitely having an effect on the Avatar HD goggles as well. 100%. We've lost the video output now. Let me just put the radio over there a second. I'm going to move them up and see if I can see through them. Okay, I can see fine. Everything is good. Right, whilst I can definitely hear it have an effect on the fans, the RF system doesn't change. There is no effect on the RF system at all, but I cannot say that this doesn't suffer an effect just like HDZero, because it absolutely does. But what I can't say is these are not susceptible, because something is also affecting these from Crossfire like it is on HDZero. It's just having a lesser effect. Now, before I move on to sharing with you some of my thoughts, we're going to do one more test, and that is with the HDZero goggles and this. This is an RFD 900 radio on the same frequency as Crossfire. Unfortunately, I don't have any 900 or 868 megs express ELRS stuff to test with, but this is basically on the same frequency, so we're going to try this as well. So, same setup as I had originally. We've got our HDZero goggles connected, and you can see the camera down there in the bottom corner. We've got a battery, and then here I've got my RF Designs radio. So what I'm going to do is just slowly move around the power cable, and let's see what happens. We're getting nothing on the power cable itself so far. All looking good. Oh, there we go. We've had a reboot. It took us to get up to here to do it, but we have now had a reboot on the goggles. Let's just wait and see what happens. Let's see if they come back. I actually heard the fans on the goggles change. I can't see at the moment what they're actually doing. Okay, they're now stuck in the HDZero boot logo, like I mentioned earlier. So what I'm going to need to do is power them down and power them back up. Now, just to demonstrate it with the goggles themselves, we'll then move on in. There we go. We got to about there, and the goggles rebooted. I can hear now that they've shut down, and we're waiting for them to kick back in. So the very basics are at this point that 900 or 868 meg systems will cause the HDZero goggles to reboot, and it will also have an effect on Avatar HD as well, but just to a lesser extent. Now, whilst I haven't got a 868 or 900 megs express ELRS to test, there is no reason that won't cause the same issues. And whilst it may behave a little differently to the likes of Crossfire, because what I can say was the RFD modem didn't kick it off quite as quick as the Crossfire did, they are absolutely susceptible to this frequency band, and as such, anything on this band may have an effect on the goggles. Okay, so as you've seen, it actually affects HDZero and Avatar HD, but to different extent. HDZero goggles will reboot, and they may reboot back to their normal working operation. However, at the higher power levels, you may find the HDZero goggles just reboot and just get stuck on the HDZero screen, and the only way to get them to kick in then is by turning them off and turning them back on. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, why would you even put your transmitter near your goggles? And whilst in reality that doesn't seem like something you would normally do, there are a few situations where you may end up accidentally doing it. One of them is the power cable. You may have a LiPo in your pocket, or you may have it on your belt or on your back, and having your transmitter around that area as well could have an effect. The second scenario is people simply having their RC controller in their hand and moving it up to move their goggles, or just move it closer, could also result in this happening. Now, on the Avatar HDs, as you've seen, it doesn't actually affect the RF link. The fans definitely reboot and it definitely kills the HDMI output, but the RF link in my tests remains the same. HDZero, though, is different. It will absolutely reboot the goggles. Sometimes they will just reboot and kick back in, or sometimes they will reboot just to the HDZero logo, and the only way to get them to kick back in is by rebooting the goggles with the power switch on the side. Anything above 200 milliwatts onwards seems to have an effect. I haven't got Express ELRS 900 to test this on, but as you did see, Crossfire on 900 and RF Designs on 900 caused it, so I would expect Express ELRS on 900 to cause it as well. As for the actual cause of this, well, at this moment, it is entirely speculation. However, just some observations from all of the teardowns that I have done on all of these systems. DJI massively shield all of the internal RF parts of their goggles. There are shielding cans everywhere in the goggles, as well as in the O3 ear unit as well, and this has the benefit of not allowing any spurious RF out, but also not letting any in as well. Avatar HD is similar, although it just has one large can over the top of the main RF board. The other boards in there, though, don't have any shielding. And what's interesting when you look at the difference between DJI and Avatar HD being affected, that is probably it. The main RF board is not being affected, and as a result of that, we're not getting the full system reboot. However, the power board and other boards, the fan controller specifically, isn't shielded, and we are getting the fan controller reboot when we get it close. HDZero is actually very different from these two systems because it is not a transmitting system, and as a result of that, the need for heavy RF shielding is not there. Whilst RF shielding may bring a benefit from an interference point of view on the goggles, it isn't necessarily like it is on these two, simply because HDZero doesn't transmit. It doesn't have that need for all of that RF shielding because it isn't trying to comply with some specific FCC requirements like these ones are. Now, as for the actual cause, we don't know, but I suspect that 900 meg signal is either interfering with one of the onboard clocks for the main CPU or the FPGA, or it's pushing a crystal off spec, getting into one of the data lines and causing the system to reset. As for, is there anything HDZero or even Caddx Avatar HD could do about this? Probably not, because the reality is you shouldn't be putting high power RF that close to any of these systems. So the question on how you can avoid this, well, the number one is very simple. Don't put your transmitter near your goggles or your goggles power cable. A shielded DC power cable may help. That is something I'm going to look into a little bit more later on. Maybe having one with a good RF shielding on the outside, which is fully grounded. However, in the end, the simplest solution to this is separation, whether it be a goggles mounted battery pack on the back of the HDZero goggles, or at least keeping that power cable down your back away from the transmitter and making sure that you're not putting that near it. There is, in my opinion, no great risk here for flight other than if your transmitter got too close to your battery cable, and as long as you are aware of that, you should be absolutely fine. In the end, this is just one of those strange situations of having multiple systems on different frequencies and them interfering with each other. As I've said, if there was more shielding on the HDZero goggles, it probably wouldn't be an issue, but as they don't transmit, we can't out and out say they should have had that shielding regardless. Now, I really hope you have found this interesting. Please do let me know what you think in the comment section. If you'd like to find out more about my teardown on the HDZero goggles, I will put a link to my review on them and where I tore them down in the description. It is a very long video, but there is a full link to that as well. Also, there will be a link there to repair.wiki where you can see the internals of the Avatar HD goggles, the HDZero goggles, as well as some of the DJI ones as well. Again, where you will see the differences between the boards and the RF shielding. If you have found this video interesting, please do make sure you give it a like. Also, please do make sure you are subscribed if you do want to see more content like this in the future. Finally, as I've said at the start, if you'd like to support us to allow us to keep making content like this in the future, please do consider checking out the links to my Patreon. It's only through the support of my Patreons am I able to keep making content on this channel, and if you'd like to support us to allow us to keep making content like this in the future, please do consider checking it out. We bought these goggles, we bought these goggles, we bought these goggles. We would not be able to make content like this without the support of the Patreons, and I just want to say a massive thank you from me to everyone who has either supported us on Patreon or via Buy Me a Coffee. Anyway, that's it from me on this one. Stay safe. I'll speak to you soon.